Please join me in welcoming our speaker as he presents Impromp-to-Success. Please welcome Tom Dowd.
In a job interview, what if you were asked, if you could be any type of tree in the world, what would it be, and why? What if you were asked a question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how weird are you? What if you were on a conference call getting lost in what's going on, and your boss says, Tom, what's your opinion? What? What if a political activist, can I say that just now? What if a political activist was knocking on your door trying to engage you, and you didn't have time? What if a telemarketer called you, and you didn't want to be rude, but you also didn't want to be on the line? What if your 14-year-old daughter told you she wants to start dating?
Stop everything.
If your jaw dropped open and nothing came out, or your mouth opened and a flood of unorganized thoughts and words came out, this section is for you. We are engaged in unprepared conversations daily. What I want you to walk away with from today is 1, the ability to refine a technique to think quickly. 2, organize and articulate innovative and unique thoughts thoroughly. 3, engage the audience in short time. In my very first job, I was 14 years old, and a peer of mine asked, "What's up?" And it's the first time I ever heard the question asked so casually. I was silent. In fact, to this day, I don't think I ever answered it. My response, by the way, is not much. How many of you are familiar with the term cocktail party syndrome? Oh, it's a real thing. According to Wikipedia, it's also known as Williams syndrome, and it means the unusually cheerful demeanor and ease with strangers. I coined the phrase for myself as being the opposite. As leaning against the wall in social situations, doing my painfully shy and introverted best not to say anything dumb. I want us all off the wall and into action. We practice these skills as Toastmasters in club meeting. Doing what? Table topics. I want to share with you today how work, practice, and preparation, yes, I use the words practice and preparation, took me from this painfully shy and introverted individual to the 2-time reigning District 45 Table Topics champion. I tell you this not to say, look at me. I mention this because thinking quickly on my feet is, in the present tense, my Achilles heel. We must constantly work at it. The payoff? More promotions, more sales, deeper relationships, more impactful conversations. We can influence others with quick thinking. To quote Forrest Gump, Mom always said life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. I'm working on my southern accent. It was pretty bad, thank you. Instant feedback, isn't this great? Tom Dowd always says, life is like a tabletop. The audience doesn't know what they're going to get, but the speaker does. Our minds tell us to instantly answer the question being asked. So let me ask you a question. And feel free to shout out the first one-word answer that comes to mind. If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would it be? Hawaii. Apparently Hawaii was. We instantly thought and selfishly thought of an immediate response and then blurted it out. Why did I say selfishly? Because I asked you to answer the question immediately.
And you we're focused on ourselves, not necessarily on the person who we're responding.
We are focused on ourselves and not necessarily who we're answering it to, because I asked you to give me and shout out the first one-word answer that came to your mind. So now that you have your one-word answer, now what? What you really need to do with that very short period of time is anticipate the follow-up questions with answers relating to who, what, where, why, when, and how. We must answer, now what? So let's stick with the travel example. And let's use Hawaii. Who might you go with?
Family.
Family? Friend?
Partner.
Partner?
Toastmasters.
Alone. What might you do when you're there? Keep it clean.
Go to the beach.
Beach? Snorkel? Luau. Where would you go? Not just a destination, but while you're there.
Sightseeing.
Sightseeing, Pearl Harbor. Stores. Hawaii. Why would you go there? To relax. It's warm. It's cold in Maine. That's why I'm going.
Entertainment.
Entertainment. When would you go?
May.
May. Anytime. How would you get there? Fly. And you can have some fun with it. You can paddle across. You can walk across water. You can make this stuff up. Is there a right or a wrong answer to this?
No.
So confidently roll with it. Toastmasters also teaches the PREP method. Point, reason, example, point. Point, reason, example, point. If you meld who, what, where, why, when, and how with PREP, you can formulate a very strong answer. So who are some of the more famous impromptu comedians out there?
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams? Bill Cosby?
Jerry Seinfeld.
Jerry Seinfeld? The one that always comes to mind for me is Robin Williams. He's known for his comedic ramblings that have a flow, a story, a message. Do you think he makes that stuff up on the spot? He's practiced and refined these skills over years of practicing his material. What you can do as Toastmasters is go back to some past speeches you've written, table topic responses you've given, or conversations you've had at the dinner table over the years. You can find a way to fit in the situation or message you want to share. You too have material. So I want to share a story with you. My wife and very naive 14-year-old daughter were driving down the road when my daughter asked, "What's that abandoned building?" My very reluctant wife answered, "That's a topless bar." Now, before you think I'm about to get inappropriate, my daughter asked, "What they do when it rains?" Now, what are some of the points you can take away from this story? Perspective. Innocence. The naivety of children. Twists and turns to a story. Casual conversations going awry. Your conversation success comes when your stories become, or responses become stories that resonate with the audience. Because this story, this same story has different points based off of circumstances. So our conversation success will come when our responses become stories that resonate with the audience. And we all have stories. In fact, your impromptu responses can really be familiar anecdotes you've told many times over. You'll never be stumped again. Even in a business situation, you can use the PREP method. Recap some past work that was done. Give a point. Give a reason. give a current example, and a final point in a business story fashion. I want you to unlock the hesitation and practice a new way of giving an impromptu, prepared narrative that is just as powerful as any well-rehearsed speech. It's audience participation time again. What's your favorite color?
Blue.
What's your favorite food?
Sushi.
I'm looking for a volunteer. Remember those answers. What's your name?
Kevin.
Hey, Kevin. What's your favorite food?
Sushi.
What's your favorite color?
Black.
I couldn't tell. In 30 seconds or less, if every time you entered a room and you had a theme song, what would it be and why?
I'll say my favorite theme song will be Brick Roll. Because every time when sometimes someone plays that song, I feel like I just tricked them. And as soon as that music goes on, I can go like this, dancing like what he did in the video, and say, never let you go. And then hey, all the ladies look at me.
Come see me after and I'll give you a look.
Quick question, why did everyone laugh when I said my favorite color? Honestly, I thought my zippers on.
Apparently I need to do some editing to the video. What is the point of this exercise? Let me know when you figure it out. It's to teach us that our minds are predisposed to answer the previous question. And we're anticipating something similar. We need to quickly break that mindset, reformulate a new response, and then confidently roll. Is there a right or a wrong answer to this? No. Then confidently roll. In a business scenario, we need to be particularly cautious about being led down a prescribed path. That's in-the-box thinking. When it comes to this type of thinking, we can share what we do know. Because it's not about making something up. It's about seeing the whole picture, not just the immediate response. And we can share what we do know. And then ask questions and engage the person and/or audience. We can ask rhetorical questions. We can even have a conversation. There's no rules that say that we can't. We need to stop answering the questions immediately and directly and start to formulate a story. It's not slides and graphs that will grab your attention. I was sitting with a bunch of high school students going over job interviewing, and I asked the tree question. And I got the typical maple, oak, birch, and then I got to the person I perceived to be the troublemaker. He stood up, and he said, I'd be a cactus. Now, is cactus a tree? I have no idea. He said, because I'm prickly, and no one knows me. But every once in a while, a small animal will burrow in and start to feed off me. And I'll start to feed off of them. I wish more people would get to know me. Then he sat down. Besides lessons in making rash judgments, there's a lesson in here about being memorable. What truly makes us human is emotions. It's not numbers. It's not stats. We need to emotionally connect with the audience. In my very first table topics contest, I finished in 3rd place. Out of 3 people At the club level. The next year I competed in both table topics and international, and I was having some good fortune with international. With table topics, no one competed at the club level. So I moved on. Only 2 of us at the area level. We both moved on. So there I was, standing at the division level, not knowing if I should be there or not. I just finished the international piece and had done fairly well, and I was last to go with table topics. And I got the question. If you were given $750,000, how would you split that 3 ways equally among charities? Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my 3 daughters. And thus started the freight train that turned into a train wreck. I gave some answer about their college tuition, and I was trying to be funny the whole time. The division governor came up to me after saying, it was chuckling, "It was nice of you to throw the contest, knowing you were moving on for international." I didn't throw the contest, but I did blow the contest. And there's some lessons that are in it. First of all, I was trying to be funny. I'm not. Just ask my wife. I wasn't being myself. I wasn't me. But that's the other lesson. It's not about me. It's about the audience. How is the audience going to relate to my answer about college tuition? How is that going to resonate with them? It couldn't. The division governor went on to say, "It was interesting how you had just given a speech about cystic fibrosis. And she also knew another speech I gave on animal rescue. And you and I were just talking about the Japan tsunami before the contest." I should have been doing what she was doing. And that's reach back to the past to find a way to emotionally connect with the audience. I could have asked rhetorical questions to engage the audience. I could have found motivational points, such as community, caring, or giving, that relate to most, if not all, audiences. I had the perfect setup. In Toastmasters, with a 7-minute speech, we are taught to have a strong introduction, 3 points or stories to support our message, and a memorable conclusion. Using this teaching, I had the answer in the palm of my hand. In a 2-minute table topic, I may not have time for 3 stories to support my message, but I do need a story to support my message. And the very first thought shouldn't be the story. It needs to be the message. What do you want your message to be? You can even use the technique pros and cons. But pros and cons don't relate to the story. Pros and cons relate to the message. Even the toughest questions can throw us off. In a job interview, I've seen far too many people struggle with the question, what's your greatest accomplishment? Is there a right or wrong answer to this? No. Will anyone know what your greatest accomplishment is? No. And we can confidently roll with it. Formulate a strong answer and clearly articulate a clear message that takes one of your accomplishments and how it relates to a business challenge you've overcome, or a stretch goal that you've achieved, or how you've collaborated with some business partners to overcome a business challenge, especially in a job interview. This self-centered question is really about the value you can add back to the organization. You must relate to the audience. What is an elevator speech? Short summary speech? About?
30 seconds to get your point across.
Could be 30 seconds to get your point across. If you take nothing more, yes?
Introducing yourself to someone.
Introducing yourself to someone. If you take nothing more out of today I want you to write out a 2-minute version, a 5-minute version, and a 10-minute version. And get to know it well. You think you'll never need it? Colleague and I were down in North Carolina for business. And we were in the hotel gym working out in the morning before our meeting, and there was our CEO of 300,000 people. We had our headsets on, so no interaction. We're okay. We finish our workout, the two of us get on to the elevator, and in comes a hand and stops the door. We didn't have 2 minutes. We had 2 floors. Now with my elevator speech, I have a variety of them, and I've jotted down a pool of answers. And one that I go to periodically is the first time I ever heard the phrase, Tom's communication skills are his key strengths. You have to understand. I was a communication major at the University of Delaware, but I was told for 18 years at work in my performance appraisals that I couldn't communicate. Yeah, after a while, I finally had to take some action to improve or succeed. And what did I do? I joined Toastmasters. And I talk about how Toastmasters changed my life and career. And then I give some examples of how that's happened. We must also be confident and creative and differentiate ourselves. When I was asked in last year's Table Topics Finals about my bucket list, I instantly thought about the 4 competitors who were ahead of me. I knew the audience had already heard some lists about exotic travel or death-defying moments to get over their fear. I quickly made the decision to not go down that path. Let's take a look.
Tell us about any items that are on your bucket list. Tom Dowd.
Contest chair, ladies and gentlemen, the bucket list. The thing you're going to do when you die. Is it ironic that I was just listening to the song Live Like You Were Dying? I think I'm going to run off and find a full name, man shoe or whatever he called it. Well, I have a bucket list. A bucket list tells me you haven't done something that you wanted. I can tell you right now, if I die today, I've done everything that I've ever wanted. I failed miserably. I've been rejected more times than you can imagine in trying to get a book published. I was turned down 4 times for a high school prom. But what I will do is that if you have everything that you want, you don't need a bucket list. You can have other stuff you'd like to do, but I would never tell you I have a bucket list.
I share this with you to reinforce some of the previous points. It was a chance for me, to be true to myself. But remember, it's not about me. We need to reach deep down into our hearts and souls. Play to our strengths. Think about the audience. And then emotionally connect with them. And then confidently go down that path with no hesitation. Confidence takes you an awful long way. We are presented each day with the need to spontaneously and succinctly convey our thoughts, ideas, and opinions. Those who do it well consistently land the big job, grab the promotion, but more importantly, influence those around them. Life is one big tabletop. Confidently roll with it. Thank you. So let's talk about questions, comments, concerns.
You just mentioned briefly the pros and cons method. Can
Yeah.
you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I hadn't heard about that before.
Yeah, pros and cons. Now, so let's take any point you want to make. So let's pick Hawaii. Why would you want to go to Hawaii? Because it's sunny, it's relaxing, it's tropical. Why wouldn't you want to go there? It's expensive. You really can't walk on water. You know, whatever it may be. And then, so when you do it, but it's all tying back to the message of do I want to go to Hawaii or not? And what our minds really do is, somebody asks you a question, and you instantly think of a story that attaches to it. And then you answer the story, and then you say, now what? And you really don't think about the question all the way through. You have a chance to take a breath. If you've noticed on the video, I took a breath. And I thought. Now, I didn't think that whole 3-minute video all the way through in my head. But what I did do is think about almost an outline in my head of where do I want to take it from here. And if you go back and revisit that video, and it's on my YouTube channel, but if you go back and view it, you sit there and think about it touched who, what, where, why, when, and how. And those questions should start to become natural. I wasn't kidding when I told you I have failed miserably with table topics contests. Where I have failed the most with table topics is when I tried to memorize a lot of stories from the past. I could have never predicted that question. So stop trying to memorize and just get comfortable with having a conversation with the audience. The question the year before was, what's the greatest technological advancement in your lifetime? And so my answer related to bringing the world closer together with emails, texts, and messages. Talked about how my daughters were sitting on the couch texting each other. They never have conversations. So, and pros and cons. Pros are it brings people together. The cons are it keeps us from having real dialogue. And so I was able to play both of those techniques together in that session. Great question. Yes?
Tom, how to use stories when I do business presentation?
Yeah, it's interesting because I am working really hard at not being a stodgy, white-collar guy, straight up and down business guy. But for my first 18 years before I joined Toastmasters, I really was. I was a stick-to-the-fact type of guy. I was the graphs. I was the slides. I was everything in my presentation is right there. You don't even have to answer any questions because I was so painfully shy and introverted. I wanted my slides to tell the story for me. But when you're in a business situation, you can have any type of conversation you want. And I'm sitting there, I mean, you obviously have to be professional about it. But there is a way to say, what you don't want to do in a business presentation is say, well, I'm not really prepared for this conversation, or I didn't sleep well last night, so this is going to be a really bad one, and you're apologizing, and all those self-defeating moments that are out there. But you can share a story that's out there, and one that I do go too often is the one about the communications pieces that are there. Or I might talk about how I'm so appreciative of how this person has helped me as a business partner before the meeting begins. And you start to loosen up the audience or a conference call by giving recognition to somebody that's on there. And you can share a story of what they were doing. So the story doesn't have to be, on the outside, I have 3 daughters and a wife. It doesn't have to be all personal stories, but there are stories that go on within the workplace. And there was a story that somebody gave on a presentation the other day. They were in the middle of giving this presentation about how they finished a project, and then they talked about how last year this person tripped over a cord, and it was so funny, and they're going back to that same meeting this year, and they say, I hope you don't trip on the cord again, and everyone had a good laugh. And it was one of those loosening moments. It fit into the situation because someone said, oh, the meeting's going to be in Miami or in Florida somewhere, and that instantly clicked and said, oh yeah, when I was in Miami last year. And then it connected. So you can bring those little stories in. And what happened over time is my reputation as a stodgy, uptight, business-only guy turned into a chance for me just to be me. The same type of person I am at the dinner table is the same person I want to be at work. And there is sometimes a difference between the two. And there is some type of separation, but in my efforts to bring it closer, by being me, I'm more relaxed. Therefore, I'm thinking straight. I'm or not in this particular case, I'm able to articulate my thoughts. And that's all by learning how to be me and telling those stories. So it's a great point, yes?
Our table topics question last night was, can money buy happiness? Could you use that to do the point, use an example point?
Can money buy you happiness? What is the point? What do you want? Money or happiness? And can you have both? And somebody is offering to give me $20 to stop speaking at me. But let me give you an example of happiness. It's not waiting to get home and this excitement to get home to go see my 3 children who I haven't seen in a couple of weeks. Money means I come here, maybe you guys buy a couple books, and I make some money out of it. I become happier, and then I can make these guys even happier by buying them nice stuff for Christmas. Baby needs a new pair of shoes. But when you think about it, it's interesting, of all the people that I've crossed paths with, and I've worked for a very large company that dealt with people that made $18,000 a year to talking to people that have made millions of dollars a year. And what you find, in my personal opinion, is that the happiness comes out from those that are living the life the way they want it, not because of the money that they bring in. The happiest people I know is not based off of the money they have, because you can lose that like that. I lost my job in June. I'm still happy. You guys aren't. Look at the looks on your face. June 6th. D-Day. Displacement Day. The day I lost my job. You guys are waiting for me to say something happy. I am. Because what happened here is I had a chance to not grab all the money that I had, but what I did have was an attitude, a good one. And what I had was a support system around me. And I was supported by people that I knew was going to get me into the right place. What did I do? I landed a job 59 days later. I wrote the 3rd book on how to find a job. I accepted a job where I commute an hour and 40 minutes away from my house, and 2 weeks later found an office that was a 7-minute walk away from my house. I am happier. I make about the same amount of money. And I appreciate the question.
Practice makes perfect, and you go a long way. You make the table topic situation. A lot of times it's really kind of lots of questions on the situation. Can you share with us your experience of certain questions or certain scenario where you are also kind of blank? How do you cope with that? respond?
Well, probably about every 3 minutes of my life, my mind goes blank. But it's because what you're trying to do is answer the question directly. You have to take a step back from the question and say, what do I know that relates back to the question? I'm not a technology geek. I answered the question on technology. You have to understand, table topics, especially table topics, is not there to throw you. If they write the question to throw you, it's a poorly written question. And there's usually an issue with that. But what they want to do is they want you to think. You want to be able to articulate a thought clearly, concisely, and succinctly. And you also have to remember there's no right or wrong answer. So there's been plenty of times, somebody asked a question about Gilligan's Island one time. And so I was sitting, the one where I finished in 3rd place out of 3 people at the club level. If you were on Gilligan's Island and you had to get off, how would you get off the island and who would you take with you? Besides telling everyone else to leave and Ginger and I will hang out here. But first of all, the question does not relate to everyone. So I think I'm never going to say there's an unfair question. I'll tell you that there's one that leans that way, that not everyone would know what Gilligan's Island was. And so my mind at the time wasn't thinking, but let's come back to the original question on practice makes perfect and practice. You have to practice thinking quickly on your feet. And so leading up to that, there are question games, there are card games, there are table topics packets you can buy from Toastmasters. There are questions, go online and just look up job interview questions. How weird would you be? What's your greatest MacGyver moment? There are questions, and it's not about memorizing, because all of a sudden you start to answer this and you say, okay, my next MacGyver moment, I know the next time I get that question, you're never going to get that question. I hope not. But what happens is, you should start saying, what went through my head when I heard MacGyver moment? I never watched MacGyver. Did you watch Murder, She Wrote? I don't know. But maybe you say, I don't know what my MacGyver moment is, but my greatest Gilligan's Island moment is, bam! And now you're moving down that path. Because you have to think in terms of, what point do you want to make? But remember, you hear MacGyver moment, and what's the first thing that goes through your mind? Is, what do I have in my repository here that relates to my MacGyver moment? And you're thinking story. Stop thinking your MacGyver story over here and start thinking about the point you want to make. Because what's MacGyver known for? Getting themselves out of sticky situations. So my message is, how do I get out of sticky situations? So then, now all of a sudden, oh, I've been in a lot of sticky situations. Do you see how you go into that backwards? Because now you say MacGyver moment, when did I play around with duct tape? Well, now all of a sudden, remember when this thing broke and I put duct tape on it and I was done? Or that time that I had this situation where I lost my job. Sticky situation. That's my MacGyver moment. Let me tell you how I got there. And so you almost think in terms of how do you think backwards to the message first, and then your story and examples will start to come alive.
I have a follow-up question. You talk about connecting to the audience when you respond. You want them to be able to absorb what you want or get interest. A lot of times you don't know your audience quite a lot. Do you play safe on the response or you take risks? Risk can go a long way, but it can also make you fall.
Never talk about religion or politics unless you're in one. Or maybe you don't. My approval rating's going down already. There are things that connect to all audiences. And I know from being with Toastmasters since 2008, I know the typical Toastmasters. We're all in this thing together. It is one of the very few places in the world where we can all be selfish because we want to get better. But we can't get there without the support of everyone else today. And so we all have these same similar goals, probably on different timelines. So in this particular audience, it's easy. But when you're dealing with other audiences, if you have the opportunity as a speaker to ask them what's the audience like, what's the demographics, who are some people I could possibly talk to beforehand to get an idea of some of the things that are going on in their life or in their profession or in their work or their projects that they're working on. I might have a little bit more ammunition. If I walk into an audience and I'm not sure what it is, I will play it semi-safe. I'm still going to be me, but I'm not going to go down some rabbit hole about politics or religion because that's just not who I am to begin with. But I'm not going to go down a contentious topic. But it is worthy of asking the question of, if you have the opportunity of saying, are you comfortable with this topic? And if you see the looks in their eyes and they're like, stay away from it, then you may want to drop it. Did you have a question over here? Yeah.
I just had a note, the person who asked about stories in business settings, I think great visions are stories about the future. So we've heard vision statements that are just, we will check that. So those are not the good visions. So being able to tell a story within a context of where your team or your department or your company is going to go is incredibly powerful.
And that's a great point because when you tell a story in Toastmasters, you use voice inflection, you use gestures. If you're on a conference call, it's obviously not going to work, but you have to work on your voice inflection. But how many business calls have you been on? Or, hi, this is Tom. Beep. Oh, sorry about that. Hold on a second. Who was that who just joined? Beep. I'm sorry. Who was that just joined? I'm sorry. We'll catch you up in just a couple moments. Beep. And you're going through this, and you're like, I'm sorry. You know, all this stuff is going on. And all right, I'm going to turn it over to Joe. Joe, why don't you give us an update on the budget? $10,000 over the budget, and we're doing pretty well. Way to go, guys. You laugh because it's real. But that's your opportunity, is I've tried my best to inflect a little inflection in there, or try to add a little bit of emotion, or try to say, hey, listen, gang, you know, if you're going to thank someone for their efforts, give a reason why you want to thank them for their efforts. If you want to tell someone about the vision of what we can do with this company, and let's go back to the job interview. The job interview where we always say, let me tell you all the things I've done in the past and how great I am. The new interview says, how do I take these skills and what am I going to do for your company in the future? That's your vision. And that becomes your story of, let me tell you the skills that I have. I was told for 18 years I couldn't communicate. Tom's communication skills are his key strengths. I took 18 years to hear that. And I tell people that because I want people to know the true me is that I'm willing to make mistakes, because if I can show how I've learned from them, then I'm going to be that much more of an asset to that company. So you start talking about the vision to this company, and don't ever say, but, when you're talking about that. Don't ever say, thanks, but, and go back to something that went wrong. You know, it was really great of this, except, you know, if you're going to talk about a vision, keep it up here and use those real examples.
I personally like to hear an organized table topics response. So in table topics contest, it seems like the judges use criteria that you never know who's going to win. You don't know what kind of criteria they use to pick the winner.
It's important to understand what the expectations are ahead of time. So if you are a contestant, first thing you do is go in and look at the form and see what you're going to be judged on. The mistake I will tell you that people make, though, is they try to give an answer based off of the form itself. Guess what they're not doing? They're not being themselves, and they're thinking in terms of judges, and they're not thinking in terms of the wider audience. Look it over, understand it, and then the most effective table topics are the ones that have, just like a 7-minute speech, a strong introduction. 3 points of stories to support your message, and a memorable conclusion. Even a table topic, I mean, there were a couple stories in there. The high school prom, which, by the way, is true. All of that is true, unfortunately. I had before contest, I put a headset on and I do my thing, and I was living like you were dying, and just happened to pop on randomly. And I say, hey, walk up to the stage, and bam. So there's one story. You have the other story that's about the high school prom and the mistakes, and then there was a piece to relate back to the audience. Was I was standing in Canada, so I made a little joke about the Canadian judges. And then this guy who had talked beforehand, this guy was phenomenal, was an inspirational keynote speaker, and I referred back to a message he had done, so all of a sudden it opens it back up to the audience of let's resonate with the message he had. So to come back to your original point of it still has to be an organized event going on in your head. Tabletop. What do most people do? They stand right here. Evaluation. They stand behind a lectern. The first thing I did, my very first evaluation, is I moved the lectern back and I stood there and the shocked looks on the people's faces of what's he going to do? I'm going to do this. I'm going to be one with the audience. I want to be closer to you guys. And when they see that, so you have to think in terms of you're being judged on your voice inflection, your introduction, your conclusion, your organization of your thoughts, and did you have a point in there? What you find mostly with tabletops, it comes back to they had a nice story, but did they give the audience something to walk away with? To be a storyteller, you have to give someone something to walk away with. Yes?
Tom, if I were a brand new person to table topics and Toastmasters, and I come in with no confidence, I come in fearful of table topics to the point that it shuts my mind down, what 3 pieces of advice would you give me?
Practice. Practice. And practice.
Tell me more.
Here's a this is Tom's unsolicited solicitation of his book, From Fear to Success. Think of your fear like this. Every time you step on stage, the fear does this. And every time you continue to make the mistakes you make, you do this. And every time you do something to take a notch off of fear, you're building up your confidence. Tom Dowd, another third-place story, international speech contest. I finished in 3rd place. Out of 3 people, at the club level. I had a whole lot of luck in my club. Top 2 people couldn't go. So there I was. I had 2 weeks to revamp this entire speech. Revamped it and I won. Move up to the state level, I won. And all of a sudden I'm standing there 1 speech away from the world semifinals. Scared out of my mind. I run into this guy, Joe, and I say, hey, Joe, I saw you 6 months ago in the spring conference or in the fall conference. You were incredible. In fact, I was so inspired. I took a lot of things that you taught me, and I'm using in my speech tonight. And he said, that's great. Oh, that's fantastic. And I said, but you're a professional speaker, aren't you? And he said, yeah. You're competing tonight, aren't you? He said, yeah. So my confidence shot down again. Sitting at lunch, and I turned to this person next to me and I said, they just made an announcement. There's 200 people in here in Canada. Of the 200, 180 of them are from Canada. My speech is about the U.S. Humane Society. Should I change it up? And the guy was like, I don't know. I said, are you a judge? He said, I don't know. I turned to the person to my left and said, I heard it, change it. So I had to change my speech right before I got up on there. So I'm talking to this guy immediately before the contest. How the contestants get together, and this guy said, God, I hope I win this thing so I can quit my day job. I said, what? He said, the world champion of public speaking, if you win that, you quit your day job, you go for the world. I said, what? 4 out of the 8 competitors went up there and said something about them being professional speakers. My confidence was shot. But the reason I share this story with you is I got up on stage and repeated the same line and gave the greatest speech of my life. Because I no longer worried about the judges. I no longer worried about the professional speakers, all I worried about was sending some type of message to the audience because I'm not going to place. Greatest speech of my life. And my confidence shot to the top. And then I keep going back to all the mistakes I've made and realize how much I've learned from each of those mistakes. And I am thankful that I made them. And I wouldn't want it any other way. Great question. Next.
Hi, back to the earlier question about emotionally connect with the audience. In the business environment, you have audience from different perspectives, different priorities, different divisions. How, as a leader, can connect with them?
Yeah, in a business forum, you're expected to be uptight and rigid and give only the numbers. Be the guy who's different. Be the person who is memorable. Be the person who's there. And you can emotionally connect with the audience. Hey, our sales are not up. We're struggling. We flatlined with the total number of widgets we're trying to sell. You know why? Because we're selling widgets. But if there's a way for us to find these widgets and how they connect to our customer base. So let's talk a little bit about our customer base. Who do you think our current customer base is? Let's talk that through. Who do we want our customers to be? And how do we want our customers to recognize our brand? When someone goes out there and listens to our brand, what do you think of? You've emotionally connected with them because they're thinking like a customer. So when I say emotionally connect, it's not about making someone always laugh or cry, but remember, humans share the same emotions. So if you can find a way to connect to one of those, happy, sad, angry, and you can tap into one of those emotions, you're going to make it happen. So if I'm going to sit here monotone and read from my PowerPoint directly to you, I haven't emotionally connected. But if I ask a rhetorical question and say that point I just made, how did that make you feel? Whether it's rhetorical or whether it's real, I've just engaged the audience. And now I've found a way to start to emotionally connect with them. Does that make sense? Good. What else?
This is a two-part question. First of all, do you have preachers in your background?
Do I have what?
Do you have preachers in your family background?
Preachers or preachers? Preachers? No. I have a bunch of lawyers.
And secondly, you mentioned that you used to be an introvert.
I am an introvert.
Well, it's obvious to me that you like your audience and you like people. Were you always that way, or did Toastmasters bring that out in you?
I am, in the present tense, a painfully shy and introverted individual. And a lot of people don't believe it. And I tell you that because I would rather be in a hotel room reading a nice quiet book. Or at least that's who I used to be. I enjoy my self-time because I can think and I can start to formulate new decisions and new ideas and then new speeches. But I can't tell you how much standing up here in front of you is going to motivate me for months to come, and that is not an exaggeration. Looking at the people's eyes and their faces, and just this hope, and I know hope is not a strategy, but this hope that I can walk away saying that you walked away with something that I said or that I did means that I've done what I really hoped to accomplish. And by the way, if I'm not meeting that, provide me the feedback to tell me how I can for my future audience. Because being painfully shy and introverted doesn't matter. This, and painfully shy and introverted, isn't the issue. Me trying to figure out that I've got a message that I want to share with others is. And so when you start to figure out, I was talking to someone beforehand and they said, Tom, how did you write your book? I wrote my book by losing the competition in Canada and winning the door prize from the guy I got up enough nerve to ask to be my mentor an hour later, and it was his book and his CD. I had a 5-hour drive home from Canada. I threw in the CD. I went home and read his book that night. I went for a 5-mile run outside, and I ran directly to the computer and started writing out my outline, and I started writing the book that I never dreamed of writing, after being told for a lifetime that I couldn't write. And I share that with you because each one of you has successes and failures that are out there. And when I was talking to this person who said, I want to write a book, and I have all these ideas going into my head, what should I do? I said, put them to paper before you forget. And they said, well, I might want a ghostwriter. I said, Put it to paper and realize how special your words are coming from you. And then someone else might say, you might want to tweak that on all 185 pages. But those tweaks made it stronger. It made my message stronger. It made me a better writer. And all of a sudden, people are absorbing a message I never believed they wanted to absorb. And so I will tell you to go out and figure out what your goals are. And write them down. And then go after them and write them and pencil them when you're done. And you hit that, erase it, write something new, and continue to achieve one after another. Because I will tell you, back to the original question on painfully shy and introverted, is I don't care about that anymore. What I care about is, am I strong enough to get a message to you, and can you absorb that message that's out there? And with that, I believe I'm about to get kicked off the stage. I'll be in the back after. I'll be glad to chat with you. I have bookmarks for everyone. It has my information on there. I'm a terrible marketer, so there you go.